Today I want to give an update on my experimental saws. This one is the one that has the spun bearing. It's the crankshaft and bearing, it's spun on the shaft, and the crankcase half here, the bearing is spun on the crankcase half also. And I used it. I milled with it a couple times, maybe I don't know, maybe several hours, or 3-4 hours worth, and it ran fine. And then one day I was cutting up a maple tree just for firewood. It's probably a 2-foot diameter tree, and it kind of changed how it was running, and so I just tuned the carburetor and it seemed to run good, but I noticed it wasn't boiling, the bar oil wasn't coming out. And then I went and I was gonna see what was going on, and my oil pump was messed up. It was missing a part, and I was gonna replace it. And then I decided to take a look at the bearing, see how it was doing, if it was holding up. I put the Loctite 620 on it, and I noticed it was sticking out a little bit. And then I was able to push it back in, and then I found that when I turned it over, it would come right out. So that obviously didn't hold. It's the bearing itself, the ball bearing part is good. I hate to throw it out because these are kind of expensive. They don't make them anymore. But that didn't save it, and I don't really know what else to try. The crankshaft, the bearings on the crankshaft were good too. It's just I could put a new bearing on that shaft and it would still fall out like this old one. So it's not just the bearing that's spun, it's also that part of the crankshaft. And then this case half is no good because of that. I thought about trying other stuff, but right now I got too many other things to do, so I'm just gonna call this one a fail for now. I might try something else if I ever read up on a glue or something that might work for that. I think the high temperature and maybe the pressure. I didn't know there was so much pressure that pop would push it out. That might have loosened up that Loctite, and it's probably just not the right application for that product anyway. But it didn't work. So I think if this had the stop ring, see, this bearing is supposed to go on an 056 crankcase. This is an 045 crankcase, and so there's no stop ring. If that were there, it might have held, because then there wouldn't be any pressure back and forth loosening that glue up. But or maybe it wouldn't have. I don't know. But it didn't really. It still ran when I took it apart. I didn't even take it apart. It ran good. It seemed to run really strong. But I'm not going to keep running it like that, because it's just going to, it's just going to seize the piston up. The other one, this is the 056 Magnum. I just took the top cover and handlebar off that one and put it on here, because it doesn't look so nice, and I don't care how they look as long as they run good. I just put the nicer stuff on stuff I'm going to sell. This one is the one with a scored cylinder. Like, the cylinder was all scored up. Like, I could catch my fingernail on probably at least a half dozen. I think like a dozen score marks all around the cylinder. And then as a new aftermarket piston, the crankcase one half had a big crack in it below the crankshaft, and I used JB Weld. I just kind of patched it up on both sides, and then I took a file and flattened it along with it to match up with the rest of the case half, and then I just used a gasket and put it together. It has that, and then it also, the bar oil basically I did the same thing with not the bar oil, but the gas tank. And the bar oil did have a previous JB Weld patch, and I just reinforced it. I just put more stuff, and I put that It's just metal flashing, and I put JB Weld on the bottom of those and stuck them there. But this one has been running excellent. I only had one problem with it, and that was that I was using small fuel filters that I bought. When I bought them, I didn't pay attention to what I was getting. I just saw it was on eBay a OEM Husqvarna, and this is the one that I pulled out of it, and it's really got dark colored, but the hole in it is tiny. It's like looks like a 1/16 of an inch, or maybe 3/32. And I think for this saw that's too small, but that plugged up. I mean, it's all dark looking, and I just put the right one that was supposed to go in this model, and it, all it was doing, it kept leaning out. I ran it probably maybe 6 hours of milling, not all at once, but I ran it total of probably 6 hours of milling before that plugged up. When I had the gas tank split, I should have cleaned it out really good, but I didn't. And probably the gas washed all the junk that was in there up and plugged that up. But other than that, this thing's been running really good. I think this is my best running chainsaw. Really, it's better than my other ones. I just sold a 056 Magnum with a full new rebuild, and it had an aftermarket piston and cylinder assembly. This one ran better than that. And my good, it's kind of my backup milling saw. It's my good saw with a really good rebuild. This one seems like it cuts better than that too. It's kind of surprising for how scored up the cylinder is, but it runs good. And so far, I don't know how long it'll last, but it's pretty good. It's got a dual port muffler and all that, and but I don't know why it runs so good, but it does. I haven't checked the compression since I rebuilt it. It started off at around 130 for compression. I probably ought to check it and see what it's gone up to. It seems like it's really strong. I don't know how it would do on really wide stuff. Maybe it's just more of a running good as a faster RPM saw than normal. I don't know, but so far it's holding up really well. It hasn't, as far as I know, it's not leaking any air. I haven't pressure tested it, but that's that. It's one's going good and the other one has failed, so I might start up another experiment. The other thing with this one is I'm using castor oil instead of a 2-cycle oil in the gas, and it seems to work really well. I haven't noticed anything happening with that. When I pulled the spark plug one day, and it was just a good brown color, like a chocolate brown. That's what they say is a good color for a spark plug. It's probably like the top of the piston was pretty black, but there was piston wash. I don't know what, like some people read the piston wash where you can still see the top of the piston, the metal, and then there's the carbon that builds up. But I mean, it's not all black. There's piston wash, and I don't know what pattern would be good or not, but I just noticed it's not just completely carboning up and plugging everything up. The spark plug wasn't all black. It looked pretty good to me. I put this air filter on. This isn't a very good air filter. After I did that, I just recently did that, but I don't like it. And then the piston got a little more black because that doesn't have as good airflow, so it's running richer with the fuel air mix, and that made the piston a little darker. But I mean it made the spark plug a little darker, but no big deal. But that's how the experiments are going. I've got quite a few logs out there now, probably maybe a couple dozen, ranging from 15 inches in diameter to maybe 20. They're all kind of small logs, all pine, spruce, and tulip poplar. And I've got a lot of projects that need lumber, so I'm going to be doing a lot of milling. And I'm going to mostly use this except for saws that I'm rebuilding to sell, and I want to test them, make sure the ignitions are good, make sure they're not scoring pistons and all that. So mostly it's going to get this until it breaks down, or I'm just going to use it. This will be my main milling saw as long as it lasts. And I'll probably, if it keeps going and I don't think it's going to mess up, I'll probably just start another experiment.